Mitra, here we go. Welcome, sir, and over to you.
I'll probably skip this. I think. Can you take a look at that and then guess what that's all about? I mean, this is the real cipher, guys. So don't think too hard. I was just preparing for this presentation pretty late in the night. And this is what I wanted to write. And that was something in Wingding's font. I don't know. So I don't know how many of you have figured that Office has this Wingdings font, and I'm just a curious cat. I tried and figured out what is this all about, the history of it, and I just thought it's fun to just start off like that. So who am I? My name is Phani Mitra. I had analytics at Dr. Reddy's. Dr. Reddy's, most of you might know, but we are a pharmaceutical and life sciences company. And we primarily work across more than 30, 35 countries across the globe. From a work perspective, I lead the strategy and analytics for them. In my past life, I've done lots of consulting, solution building, and so on, primarily in the analytics area. Industries, I've had the opportunity and the privilege to work with multiple industries, and life sciences previously with with high tech, automotive, and other firms as well. So I wanted to just bring all this together and say, what does it do to us as an analytics professional, right? And then that's my philosophy for life, that nothing is useless. So all the way from Wingdings font, and people who are interested, I have a link in here. There's a beautiful article on Vox that you can read up and say what that is about. Yeah. So before I start off, I just want to do a quick check. I would have some keywords in there. I just want you to say if you have kind of heard, know or use this. Okay. Talent, Ni-Fi. Okay. XGBoost. Okay, great. Perceptron. Oh, that's wonderful. The first time I saw this, I thought it's some transformer, brother of Decepticon, or but yeah, Perceptrons, and good. I kind of get a sense of who you are, and I don't know how many of you know MEC. Okay, people who know MEC can go have coffee, because this talk is primarily about how do we teach MEC to the analytics folks. Okay, so that's the whole idea, and I'll tell you why it is. Yeah. So this is the most hyped job in the world. Okay, this is now the most exciting place to be in. The conferences are full. Everybody is super excited. There is always something new happening in the space, and it's a beautiful place to be in. But when I see a lot of people coming and talking to me, or I see a lot of people discussing about this, a lot of times when they join, they don't know what this job is about. It's poorly defined, articulated badly in most places. And when you go and ask people, are you happy with your job? It's intermittently satisfying, and which is the case with most of the jobs, and this is no different. The sexiest job is not so different. And then the most important of all is that it is vaguely understood in the boardrooms. Everybody is super excited, but it's barely understood. Okay, so I don't know how many of you have read this book called Who Moved My Cheese? Okay, some of you. Okay, so Who Moved My Cheese is one of the best books, under 100 pages, so people who don't read much, yeah, only next to Jonathan Livingston Seagull probably. But this is a book about change, and this is about these 4 characters, and just a couple of lines for the rest of you to get a sense of it, right? It's about these 4 characters who find this huge chunk of cheese, and one fine morning, and they just enjoy the cheese every day. So just walk in there to the station. The cheese station has a lot of cheese in there. They just eat it and kind of have fun, right? And most of the time. So there are 2 folks, essentially here, Sniff and Scurry, who are like rats. So they keep sniffing every day. They just check everything is okay or not before they actually eat it. And then Hem and Ha are human beings. And so they build their houses closer to the cheese. They just settle down, go wake up at 10 o'clock in the morning, go have cheese and come back. And one fine morning, the cheese disappears. Okay, and what happens to these people when the cheese disappears is a beautiful book on how people treat change, sniff change, when everything is going good. When there's lots of cheese, when everything is a party, right? Then can you sense the changes that are happening underneath? Is the whole idea. And I want all of us as analytics professionals to understand that there is a huge change that's happening right now. As we speak, there are a lot of things that are coming up, but there are a lot of things that are changing as well. So I think that's the whole idea that I wanted to explore with you guys, right? And so I have 2 points of view. I have a point of view on how I see the field evolving, and another point of view on how do we, as analytics professionals, actually impact the business strategy and business decisions, because that is the ultimate aim. And so that's the broad idea. So in terms of part one, this is my view of analytics as a profession. So this is my personal point of view. I see it as a three-dimensional job. Okay, the three-dimensional job primarily, the first axis being math. People who love math, who have have done their vector algebra well and stats well and so on, right? So there are people who love their math, and there's another bunch of people who I see as data and tech people. Okay, people who love to play with data, want to build technology that allows your IOPS, input output to be better, storage systems to be nice, and to be accessing properly, and so on and so forth. Right? There's a data and tech world that I look at. And the third one is the business. Okay, the end of this is about how much do you understand the business of the organization that you are part of, of an analytics organization that you're part of. So these are the three axes. I want you to just keep this picture in mind. I would come back to this a little bit as we go on. And this is how I see the typical value chain. Okay, and again, I'm being a little flippant here. Okay, I'm just being light about it. But essentially, if I look at it, there are a lot of people who start off their careers as what I call model runners. Okay, so somebody has built a model, you're running it. You don't know what it is for, but somebody has built a great career scoring model, you just run it, give the output. And there's a slightly next level, which is model selectors. Okay, not decision tree, random forest, whatever, right? So you're kind of making the decision and choices around that, and then somebody customizes it. Somebody then builds it. Somebody who's actually putting in all the ingredients together and building it. And the next level is what we call people who figure or fiddle with a neural net, with any of the advanced algorithms that you can think of, right? So these are what I'm broadly calling them as tinkerers. So they have a good idea. Most of these Kaggle grandmasters are usually tinkering with something that is existing, but they're good enough to kind of play with it. They understand the nuances of it, and so they're tinkering with it. And there are people who are developing these algorithms, and most of them professors, and there are people in the research field that they're doing it. I just put Jeff Hinton and Andrew Ng right on top because I don't know what they are. They're just gods probably. So I just left them there. And then you would see it. You would see it as a pattern on all the three fields. There are data extraction, data engineering, modeling, architecting, solution building. Put it on Amazon, EC2, whatever, right? SageMaker versus GCP and so on and so forth. So there are a lot of things that people are making choices on. But these are broadly how I see those three axes and the growth of those three axes, right? So of people moving across these three axes. Again, it doesn't really restrict. As I said, it's a three-dimensional field. So you can actually be doing this and this and this, right? Somebody who's just building it, and then you can be doing here and then a little bit here and then a little bit here, right? So it's a combination. It's a combination in there. But that's how I see the job. Yeah, that's how I see the job. And there are a lot of things that are coming together, right now, which I believe are making this speciality skill. Analytics was considered a speciality skill, okay, for a long time now. But there are a lot of things that are coming in and making it a self-service. Okay, what I mean by self-service is a lot of us. I don't know how many of us understand what really goes inside a KNN, or what really goes inside an algorithm before it figures out, the answer. Okay, a lot of people are now operating in a space where they are, again, I'm just generalizing for the sake of an argument here, but essentially a lot of people are people who are running it as is. And it is made possible because, one, you have lots and lots of open data available. So there are Walmart sales available on Kaggle just for you to play with. I've seen a 1 petabyte of, I guess, one of these e-commerce sites data, 1 petabyte available, available for anybody who wants to play with it and want to try out solutions on scale. Okay, so there are things like that, and then obviously open source. A lot of us, I don't want to sound too old now, but when I started doing it, we were all training ourselves on a proprietary stack. SAS, SPSS, and whatever, right? So there are these proprietary stacks, but now we have this entire thing open sourced. R is free, Pretty much everything is free that you can think of to play with to become a data scientist is all free. You can technically build the entire organization's data science team with zero investments, except for compute and storage or something like that, right? And then this bunch which actually made it possible, which is the cloud and these modular tech stacks. That is another big thing that I have seen, obviously, primarily because data science is a classic use case for cloud. I need lots and lots of cores only for this algorithm to run. I don't need it after that, okay? So a big shift there as well. And this is my favorite, and this is something that I thought of it, and I don't know, this is my innovation in some way. So the whole idea of being simple. Okay, Python, I guess, I don't know how many of you know it, is at least 30 years old, 25, 30 years old. But the beauty of the code is so simple. It's just so simple, right? Every time we are building something, there is a revolution now to make it simple. So you see this constant pulsation of complex and then simple, okay? So people thought, okay, I will have to build this algorithm and do whatever, and suddenly somebody says, okay, this is self-service, okay? So suddenly that just shifts the entire thing, and obviously communities like Kaggle, most of you know it, right? And this is what I mean. Each stack is now, which was considered a speciality, is now becoming self-service, okay? So again, some of these tools, I'm not endorsing any of them, but at least if I look at it, I don't know how many of you played with Microsoft Azure ML or Google's Cloud ML and so on. Most of these places, selecting an algorithm is just drag and drop. Oh, I didn't like the output from here, I just change. I just change the algorithm, run the model again. Everything is very, very simple. You don't need to know what that is. And that's the risk. I probably have to talk about it some other time. But that's the risk we have of making it very, very simple, right? Everything is self-service. Again, I don't know how many, have you guys heard Data Robot, H2O, right? So this is the beauty of it, right? The best part of a great Kaggler typically is around people who could do feature selection and feature engineering. The model, the algo is like general now. It's pretty much everybody knows it. The beauty of or the brains behind it is now about the guy's ability to select a feature or engineer a feature. Okay. Now with I don't know if people who have not seen a data robo or H2O.ai, the ability to almost feature engineer on the fly. The tool does it for you. The framework does it for you. It just runs brute force, runs everything and figures out what is the best feature to pick. Okay. So now imagine that job is okay. Anybody can run it now. I just need to throw cores at it and yeah, it'll. So I'm just trying to not be a party pooper, but I'm just saying that this is a big deal. This is a big deal that's happening right now to a lot of us. Obviously, if you are in the modeling space, these are some things that you should certainly be watching out for and say, how can I write this? How can I work with this? How can I still be relevant? What do I do more? The second big chunk, as I see it, again, I don't want to go into details here, but there was a lot of there were quite a bit of jobs that were around data preparation. Data preparation. Okay? Change the data. Play with the data. Clean this up. Whatever, right? All the way from string to number conversions, like everything else, right? So basically, that entire chunk of work was done. But now things like Alteryx, Trifacta, Paxata, so a lot of tools, right? And you can just go check them out yourself. But I believe the part that I talked about earlier in my previous slide about modularization of tech. Okay, so people who knew Spark, Hadoop could only do this. I don't know Spark Hadoop, but I still want to play with my data and I want to do it at that speed. It's possible, right? So that's the kind of revolution we are seeing right now. That's a huge revolution we are seeing right now, and that's what I'm calling a self-service revolution in analytics. Okay, so and same thing here, right? This is another piece of piece that is very, very relevant to people who are business analysts. Okay, so I don't know, again, people who said they knew MECI and kind of know XGBoost kind of people, somewhere in that intersection. They are business analytics folks who kind of understand what they want to do, and then and this person, the persona that I'm talking about is probably using a Tableau or a Click kind of software today. Okay, just playing with it, creating visual exploration, figuring out what's happening, and so on. Now enter NLQ kind kind of solutions, right? Natural language querying, So there is this chatbot-ish interface. I just type show me sales trend of Russia for the last 6 months, and there's a trend line there. I don't need to build dashboards anymore. I don't need to create and serve up this pre-built reports to the businesses anymore. So a lot of jobs that we have in this space, that a lot of entry-level jobs where we were having people who were report builders, report designers, this bunch that I typically talk about, report designer, definer, define a report was also a good job for some time, right? Because I will understand the requirements from the business, I will convert it, gone now. You just have the business run it, and then this is the data, just type it in, type your query and you get it. Like folks like Answer Rocket, ThoughtSpot, completely revolutionary. And they're still too small, but they're going to completely take this on and probably get acquired sometime. And then folks like Narrative Science, I don't want to even write a memo of all my insights, okay? So there is a narration happening. There is a narrative science, that can actually convert. Sorry? Yeah, generation from a. But again, parts of it obviously is maturing. So it's not that these are going to disappear tomorrow. That will not. So that's why I don't want to sound too pessimistic here. I want us to see this more as an opportunity of what is possible, and so where do we go from here, right? I mean, that's the whole idea. When we start coding, right? So a lot of people used to write codes for creating windows, so just to create a window. People are writing Java codes to create a window, and then we said, that window creation code was gone. So slowly, but the people who knew how the inner workings of that code were, still lead the thinking today. So this in no way takes away the fact that most of us need to have the fundamental understanding of what does analytics mean, what does data science mean. But what this also does is, it's just not enough. It's just not enough to know it, because that's the evolution. That's the evolution of it, right? So that's how I see the change. So that's how I see the change, and then this is the news that is going to change all the time. Yeah, and this is my, I don't know how many of you can see the pic, but this is my favorite movie, Kung Fu Panda. And as Master Oogway says, there is no good news or bad news. There's just news. It's all about how do we react to it. So this is where I see, and this is the first part of how I see it. And this is my prediction for the future, right? And the future belongs to what I'm calling as T-shaped people. This is not my invention. There is Tim Brown who was the CEO of IDEO, the design firm IDEO. He's created this term about T-shaped people, and essentially T-shaped people are people who have a very, very good depth or understanding in one core area, and also have a knowledge and ability outside their core area so that they can collaborate and bring things together. Okay, so and then they have these. So usually we are usually I's, as they call, right? So we're very, very good with one particular thing. Okay. And there are some lines. I think there are a lot of people who are very shallow in this all over the place. So the idea is that, are you a T? Do you have the right combination of skills in one core area that people look up to you for, and have an ability to still communicate outside your core area? And that's the broad ask, right? And when I look at this, there is no restriction of what your T should be. Okay, and so I have any of these. Okay, do you want to be a person who kind of understands the business a lot, has worked in the space and knows the industry a lot more, but also understands the data part of it, the tech part of it, and the models and all goes, right? So that's one T. Yeah, and then there are other people who are really, really required, who can actually craft this, architect this entire thing, because it's going to be massive amounts of volumes of data. So there is certainly a need for a huge set of people here, people who know the tech part, who know the data, and know how to handle it. And then absolutely the brilliant folks that are leading this industry are the folks with the math. Today, the math thinking is really, really out there. So if you love math, if you're people who really believe in this, you just should go all out on it, right? So that's the T that all of us have to choose. What do we want to be? But the second part of it, I really wanted to focus on just one, because for the lack of time, okay, on the people who want to be here, okay, who want to be closer to the business, okay. So that's what we will do today. But that's the second part of what I have to say. So these are the questions that we would look at, and I would leave some time for us to have a conversation. But this is about, I'm a data scientist. I work in a business organization as an analyst, analytics person. How do I stay relevant? Okay. And the second big chunk is, how can I contribute to my business? A lot of people actually come up and say, I've got this great analysis, but I want my business to accept this. How do I do it? Right. So that's the broad element. Again, my point of view on this is, analytics professionals, the way I see them, are doing only two things. Okay. Either identifying an opportunity or solving a problem. Okay. If you're doing any analytics project which is not in one of these buckets, don't do it. Okay. So it's not going anywhere. So I think that's the broad categorization. I'm just being very black and white in here, but yeah. But that's how I see it. Yeah. So the big chunk is, then I looked at it and said, who had this? Who was doing this for a living, right? Who were doing this for a living, where they were identifying problems or opportunities and then solving problems, and made lots of money off it. Okay, and I see the consulting firms, right? And they are not specific to an industry, but they have been a great. And I've worked with many of some really great consultants in my life, and they're brilliant for a reason. Okay, they're brilliant for a reason. Because they have this ability to, and they have been doing this for a long time now, and so that they have matured this entire thing, okay? So the big elements of how they add value is about just getting the people to understand what their problem is, So because it's usually very, very muddled up. The problem definitions are all over the place. If you ask somebody, what are you solving for, you'll get all kinds of answers, and it's not very clear. So one is about opportunity problem framing. The second one is about ideation and solutioning. So the ideas come from multiple parts of the organization, but how do you convert them into solutions? How do you ideate and convert them? The third one is about influencing decisions. So this is very, very important. This is not about making decisions. Okay, so they don't make decisions. The consultants don't make decisions. The people in the organization make decisions. The business teams make the decisions, but they influence it almost to the extent that people just make it. When the guy recommends, he just says, yes, I'll do this. Okay, and that brings us to the fourth part of assuring outcomes. There are a lot of places where, how do you ensure that this is great, but how do you ensure that, and this is about some good consulting projects that all of you might have some negative stories to tell me about consultants, but that's for another day. Yeah. So I've converted this into 5 key ingredients that we as analytics professionals can take away. Okay. So and these are the questions that I want you to think of whenever you're picking anything, and then see how it works for you in your own space and in your environment. The first one is what problem and whose problem. Okay, so if you're given anything, I'll get to a little bit of detail on this, but that's the first one. The second one is designing a solution, not providing a solution. Okay, just I've got this great analysis, take it. Okay, no, design it. The third one is around strengthening the core. I'll talk about a little bit. Recommendations, and the fourth one, which is my favorite, I'm sure you must have heard some of these in the past. If you have not read the book, Storytelling with Data, you should. But that's primarily about how do you create recommendations as stories. Okay, because people remember stories, people don't remember numbers, and that's except for probably people in this room who love numbers and probably remember the numbers better than the stories. But that's the rest of the world out there doesn't remember numbers; they only remember stories. And the last, the most important one is, did they understand it? Did they use it? Because this is very, very critical, and that's what completes the circle. That's what completes the cycle of what you have started doing. Yeah. So I think this is the broad idea. The first one is around solving the problem. Very, very broad framework. It should, if you are picking up a problem and are working on it, it should either be helping your company in engaging with their customers, make money, or meet the stakeholder expectations. And the third one is, sometimes neither of them are happening, but companies are now today working on analytics problems which are disrupting their own businesses. Okay, so I've had this one great case study about how Caterpillar worked with a company that was actually renting this heavy equipment, right? And then this app and the analytics that they were building on was primarily for creating rentals for equipment. CAT makes money off selling equipment, but they were disrupting their own. And so if you are part of, let's say, CAT, and you have this opportunity to work on this analytics engagement about how people rent equipments, okay? So it's not going to make money for CAT today. It's not going to make money or engaging their customers any differently with their existing customer set, but this is a completely different business model, okay? So if you're jumping onto any business problem, working on it, check whether it is closer to the core of the organization. This is what I'm calling the core of the organization. The other thing that we are looking at, as even within Dr. Reddy's, when we look at it, is are we because it's a problem for me, it must be a problem for the industry. We're reasonably there. So if I'm solving it for myself, am I solving it for the industry? And that's where I see a lot of new thinking coming in. Okay, and because by nature of how these are set up, it requires a lot more data to solve for it, right? I mean, if I have only data of my own organization, then it will work reasonably okay. But if I have the ability to merge with other data sets of the industry, it's going to make it even more exciting. Okay, so that's the part that I want. So, and then the second. Sorry, the second one is about whose problem is it? It's about who is your stakeholder. Understand whose problem are you solving. Okay, very critical. That's a big chunk. Sorry, I'll have to rush through a little bit. And when I say industry, this is actually from our life sciences industry. So when we look at life sciences industry, when we say we are solving problems on 3 value chains, as I'm calling it. One is on the care chain. So a lot of apps that you see around patient adherence. Are they taking their pills on time? Are they sticking to their schedule? Are they eating the right food? And so on and so forth. Are probably in the care chain process. And there is the second one, which I'm called material chain, but it's primarily around products. Okay, product development, product distribution, track and trace analytics. A lot of things around where the product itself is moving. Okay, and that's the second part. And the third thing is obviously the dollar chain, and which is about how the organizations can cut costs, can make more revenue, etc. Right. So that's the broad chunk. Some of the use cases that I've put here around failure predictions, yield improvements in our manufacturing plants, etc. are the use cases that fall in there. Right. The broad idea is, are we working on the right set of problems? Okay, and it's important to understand who is the user. So when we build a great analytics model, somebody's going to consume it, okay? And unless you craft it for him or her, it's not going to work. So I remember this one case study of me building a great recommendation engine on which products to cross-sell in a particular pharmacy, and so because it improves availability, also improves the revenue for us, and we built it for a person who sits in the head office, okay? The easier call could have been if we built it for the medical rep who is running, because it's going to give him more money to live. It's going to change his motivation. He's going to figure out whether my model is working or not. He's going to fill up my confusion matrix. You recommended, yes, it didn't work, But so who is your user? And by just shifting that for a minute, it changes a lot of things as well. So again, I'll skip through some of these things. I'm a big fan of design thinking. All of you should think of it as well, if you like it. I believe it as a philosophy because it puts the user at the center. Is it viable for him? Is it desirable for him? Because a lot of solutions that we build usually go into the dustbin. I don't know if it's a little irritating and insulting sometimes, but it does go into the dustbin because the user is just not convinced. He just doesn't believe. Some geek had given me something and you want me to run this list and call these people. We are usually creating this list of people to call for our sales guys. Okay, recommendations of the next best customers to call or stuff like that. So unless you have designed it for the user and more importantly for a human being, for a person who has his own motivations to put in, and that's the part that design thinking does very well. And even though it's outside our field, it's outside our realm of analytics, it's a very important field for us to think of and say, how do I put my user at the center? How do I put my stakeholder at the center? So that's the broad idea. And then there are processes around it, so I'm going to skip it. The third one is very important, strengthen the core. This is what you are at the table for. This is essentially what I mean by this is get your models right, get your data right, get your metrics right, sensitivity versus precision versus, so get your metrics absolutely right. And one of the reasons I'm bringing this up is also because when I talk to a lot of people and I give them, usually my standard case study is, I'm designing this this radar, okay, and it's a classifier algorithm that I want you to write to figure out whether it's a bird or a plane, okay. Which metric would you optimize? Things like that. Of all the true positives, true negatives, etc., which metric would you optimize? And then switch it, and you are a drone. I'm building this drone, and it will shoot some terrorist off, and so which metric would you optimize? Because a wrong shot in the first case is you're probably going to kill a bird, which I'm not, I'm not encouraging, but it's not that bad. But in the drone case, you're going to kill another human being who is not the right person. So it's a big difference. So now how will your precision, sensitivity, specificity, which metric, right? So things like that. So people actually mess up with some small things like that, and unless you get your core right, unless you strengthen your core, that's not going to help. And that's I'm not going to go there. This is my favorite as what I call as recommendations. And this I want you to just hold on to this thought for a minute to understand what is a good recommendation, okay? And recommendation in my view is analysis, insight, and a call to action. Okay? And this is very important because usually we are very good with analysis. Okay? The better guys go and give you an insight. Okay? Analytics professionals think calling for action is not their job, which is a big problem today. Calling for action essentially means I want you to stop doing this and call these guys from today on. I want you to invite these people to your event and not these, okay? I want you to go here and not there, right? So you're actually making these calls for them, okay? And that's where the fun of it is, and that's where people who are choosing to be T's on the business have to be more bold in calling for action, okay? So are you bold enough? Do you trust your analysis enough? Do you trust your models and your metrics enough, to be doing it? And the flip side of this is most of the time when you're talking to the business teams, you are the one who knows the data and the models accurately, okay? So if you mess up, there's nobody going to find out, okay? A lot of times when I have seen, I've walked in, you can say something and get away with it, okay? Would you still do a thorough, rigorous job of your analysis even in that case, okay? Because you are the only one watching yourself, right? And somebody's going to put their money on you. And that's what you're calling for action on. And that's the part where building trust with the business on whether your analysis is right, whether you are thorough with your job, because there's no way that they can check. Very little that they can do about it. Okay, so that's the part that brings out our own integrity as analytics professionals, true to our core that I was talking about in the past. Yeah? So that's the broad idea of it. And then anybody who has tried persuading a business user to do a control test, I don't know how many of you have said, okay, this is a beautiful recommendation. We are creating these two groups. This is a control group. This is a test group. We're running this. Then we'll run a t-test, figure out whether the means are different. Try it, and you will see it. You will see the reaction. Oh, you will not run a campaign in my territory. How is that? Or why would you run that campaign in my territory? Everything is fine. Why do you want to stop and change this now? So this is the fun part of that tea. Okay, this is the fun part of that tea. And this is my last and the favorite one. This is what I call as the confusion matrix for business adoption. Okay, this is basically I have recommended and they have followed, which is great. I have recommended and they never bothered. It went into the bin. I didn't recommend, but they did something wonderful. The business by themselves did something wonderful. Okay, how did we miss it? How did my data miss it? Okay, and the third one is more. The fourth one is nothing happened. Okay, so nobody's going to find out. But are you still going to go looking out for opportunities and things like that, right? So this is my confusion matrix for business adoption. Yeah, so that's the broad idea of it. I'm just recapping. My view of this is influencing business is more than just good analysis. This is about are you involved or committed. I don't know how many of you have seen this. This is about a hen and a pig starting their own restaurant. I'll let you. So this is about, in this case, the hen is involved. The chicken is involved, but the pig is committed. Because it's bacon and eggs. Okay, the pig is given a part of it for the bacon, and the chicken has just given some eggs. So, so are you involved or are you committed? So this is how I see it. So I really request you to get involved, and as a part of this is what people. I'm running out of time, but this is one of my most favorite frameworks that I've seen a lot of game designers use. They actually want us to be in a zone called the flow zone, where you just can't stop gaming. You just love it so much that you just can't stop yourself. Okay, that happens essentially when your capabilities are at a certain level, and the degree of challenge is matched accurately. Okay, if the game is very, very boring, okay, because you can actually run faster, but there's nothing happening there. It's not, you don't fail enough, so it's not challenging enough. Okay, and that's where you get bored. And the other places, like, you are failing continuously because you don't have the skills for it, and then you switch off and don't play the game anymore. I see our profession as this. I see the analytics profession, and pretty much all professions like this. Okay, you have the skills for it, you have the challenge for it, it matches, it works. Okay, so I wanted to think of where are you today on this map? What's your T? And how would you look to go forward from here? And yeah, my wings font, and that essentially.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, for this fantastic session, I think he deserves a better round of applause. Come on, everybody.
Thank you.
Well, now the forum is open for Q&A, so raise your hand if you want to ask any question. Yes, very first and prompt hand that I can see here.
Hi, I'm from MAS, and we are in the process of building a data science team. So we have come like a 1 year, 2 years journey on this. So should we expect all of these features from a analytics profession, or should we build a team around complementing each of these skills and drive for more collaboration?
So I think it is, as I said, you should always hire the Ts. You should always have some good guys who know what they want. And if the Ts don't exist in your own company, for instance, we are not a big data science team, but we work with a lot of people outside as partners. And we know what's the T that we are looking at. There are people like an Amazon or a Google or Microsoft who gives me the T on data and tech, for example. But I would then go to another niche consulting firm or an analytics firm to build the data science T. Okay, so I don't think you can but you still need to have the right set of people who will come in. It also depends on how many people, what is your investment. Maybe we can talk offline as well. But that's my broad idea.
Before going to the next question, let me announce this. Right after this Q&A session, we have the open mic session which is coming up, and the topic is how to crack data science interviews. So this gonna be one fun with each and everybody. Anyone can take the stage and speak their views on this topic. We'll come to that. Before that, one more question. Yes, right there. I'll come to you as well. Can I please ask for the mic, sir, if you're done, if you have any other question? No, right? Thank you. But we need you to speak on mic as it is getting recorded.
So the concept that you introduced, fantastic, but don't you think that it applies in a broader sense, not just analytics? Because when I was studying, we were introduced to something called as designing 8086 microprocessors controllers, and we are in the world where in our phones we have now quad processors. But if you understood the basics right, how to go about the design flow, you can design quad cores, you can design octa cores. Same principle applies here as well. If you're not just using a click view and moving visuals around here and there, you know what you're doing, what you're trying to solve for, and what's the ultimate outcome of it. You can work on click view, you can work on Tableau, or any other tool that comes up in the future. So that's more of a broader concept in which you say, look back saying, am I doing something artificially, or am I understanding what I'm trying to solve for in life?
It's absolutely true. It's absolutely true for all professions everywhere. I just wanted to bring this to this forum primarily because when we are carried away with a lot of enthusiasm, right? So there are a lot of people who are going in and joining data science courses. They don't know what's their T. They don't know whether they like math. They've never done well in math in the past. I've had the opportunity to be in some really bad places, really bad interviews. So it's like that. If people don't know their T, it becomes very difficult. They know a bit of everything. They don't know enough of anything. So it becomes very difficult to kind of place them, and that's the question. So what do I do with you? How can you help? Right? I think it's absolutely true. It's absolutely true, and it's absolutely true for all fields. And I gave that example of coding for Windows because I've done that way back, where we used to write the windows for sizing windows, and for closing and minimizing, we used to write code for that. So before my MBA. So anyway.
Well, the last question, but from the lady.
Hi, I'm a founder of Rhino AI. it's a startup in AI related to automotive. But then prior to that, I was an end-to-end solution and product design. I'm a research analyst as well. So I found out where I stand in the T. So, but right now I'm trying to move into the business T side. I have kind of little bit of knowledge on that part too, but I have more focus. I work with many of the clients all over the world priorly. So, how do you? What would you suggest me for going across the world for the business? Especially, what are the artifacts I should be carrying with me?
So I think probably it's a broad question, but I usually look at all. We at least work with POCs on a lot of startups, and I usually have them on a spectrum of people, platforms, and products. Okay, so that means we are 4 bright young guys who want to crack something. So I'm bringing people to you. Okay, the next bunch is we've built something which basically does this better than what the existing what's in the market does, right? And the product is where the business knowledge comes in. Because if you've built a product, essentially you have taken a platform and have attached it to a domain. So I suggest that you kind of look at what domains you want to play in. Maybe if it's in finance or in pharma or in specific areas, and then go a little deeper. I don't think you have to personally go there, and that's the beauty of this. You've got your skills and strengths. So as long as you are able to say that, okay, these are the 2 other areas that I can go to, then it's easier. So in the consulting speak, they say jump trees, not forests. Okay, so it's basically like you can't jump, one forest to another forest. Okay, so you can only jump a tree at a time. And so it's a broad answer, but you really have to know what are the industries that you want to look at. Then pick a couple of friends who can complement you on it, and then you will pick it up. It's no big deal. I mean, it's common sense most of the time.
It's a brilliant animation story that you have told. Thanks for that.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you very much, sir, for your great session. Everybody, put your hands together. Well, time for the open mic session immediately that we are going to take over. And I may request everybody to kindly be seated if you are interested for the open mic session. Well, the topic is how to crack data science interviews, which is very relevant to many of us. And those who are joining this, please, may I please request you to come and join us little up front. In the front rows, can you please be seated? Thank you.